All right, let's begin. All right, we are beginning. It's a minute early, but I got some viewer count going on, and people can join later, or they can watch it later on the recording. So this is Thursday in second period, and I posted an assignment. I'm going to look at it. This is kind of the biggest one in our initial warm-up project, which is what we're calling this. Remember the chatbot? It's a big thing. It's going to take a while. So we're doing a warm-up project with individual, where each person gets a little template and you do some work with it to think about the concepts, get some practice, and then we'll grade that with an assessment grade, a nice medium-sized one. And then we'll start the big group project where everybody will make something bigger now that you know what you're doing. So at first we had a template assignment where you kind of copy some code and get it going. And if you wanted to change things like the color or add some details or whatever, that's fine. Of course, we'll do more later. The second part on the e-learning had a little video and a couple quick articles about like the not the code concepts, but the design concepts and what do you want your conversation to be like with your bot. And I use examples of like an NPC in a video game because that's a very simple thing. It might only have 3 or 4 lines, but it can still give off a vibe, a personality. It can be nice and encouraging and like, yeah, come back later when you have more to tell me and good job and good luck. Or it can be very neutral and just say, hey, here's what I have. If you want it, great. If not, bye. And you don't feel obligated at all. Or they can be mean and, tell you off. And, there are many possibilities, even when you have something simple. And you might want a certain angle on that. Like if yours is asking questions, like if it's, hey, what do you want to know? What can I do? What can I help you? You might want it to be extra nice. But if yours is kind of waiting and the people ask it questions, you might want it to respond in a sort of neutral way. It really depends. Anyway, I'll grade those. I haven't graded these, by the way. I'm probably going to have some time today, and I'm definitely going to have some time tomorrow, so we'll get on that. But our new stuff for today is this, which if you were on the previous one, you click next, that's great. Or you just use the link that I posted here. It's called Step 3. Get familiar with Rivescript. So Rivescript is the language we're using. It's not super common. When you learn like HTML, JavaScript, and CSS in this class, those are very widely used languages for many websites and apps and various venues you might see them. But this Rivescript is really just made for one thing, which is this specific type of chatbot input, output, back and forth in a little text box. I suppose it could be translated on here and add some detail. So here's a template version that I did from the assignment on that type, and I didn't change the color or anything. This looks just like what it says to start with, and it starts off with this: hello, I'm a brand new bot, because in the code for that it has one called start, and you should probably put that first because when you're looking at the code you want that to be like visible right away. You don't want to have to dig somewhere else for the start, even though it might work. Then it had one that was an asterisk, and then sorry, I don't understand that, which the asterisk is a wild card. It means anything. So at first, when it didn't have these guys, it was just start, it says this, anything else it says this. But we're adding more. So a couple I did in the other class when we were talking about it, I said, what's your name? And it says my name is Luigi. And so that gives you the basic pattern of plus user input minus bot output. And one thing you'll notice right away is that this doesn't have any capitalization, any punctuation, but if you use those things in the text box, it still works. So for example, I'm typing "what's your name" with a capital, an apostrophe, question mark. Maybe you can't see it with the webcam. Let me take my little guy down in size. And so it says, "What's your name?" And I hit enter, and it says, "My name is Luigi." This is not exactly what's right here in the code. This is, in fact, what you have to put, because if you add an apostrophe or a question mark, it says a little error message like, "Hey, we don't want that." But the user doesn't know that, and the user can use whatever they want. This is sort of a bigger version of, sometimes you'll see things that are not case sensitive, where if you type a word with capital or not, it doesn't matter. This is a bigger version of that, where if you type it with punctuation or not, it still takes it. So don't worry about those. If you're trying to enter code, or code in here that has a, for example, I'm going to add an apostrophe and then I'm going to hit run, and it's going to give me an error message that's like, "Oh, you may only contain these characters, blah, blah, blah." We don't care because the user can still put them in. So let's look at some of the other guys. It tells you in the directions what to try next, and says one with some random replies. And the way to do that is if you have a plus and then a couple minuses. So if you have how are you, good, bad, well then if I type how are you, remember I could add a question mark, I could add whatever, then it'll say this one 50% and this one 50%. If you add another, then they're each 33%. You know, they are spread evenly. I don't remember if it says this, but you can add something called weight. So you put like weight equals whatever, and then it will be proportional to the weight you give it. So for example, let's say I do this. I have 1 for good, 1 for okay, and 3 for bad. So that means 60% of the time it would say this one, and these each 20. I just want to do it a couple so that we see that it gets different. I'm probably not going to get the okay because that's only 20%. That's the idea, is that you can give multiples. And I don't remember if it says weight in here, but you can look that up because it gives you this link to a big ol' documentation file with all the stuff. However, I don't love looking at things that way because I prefer examples. I just want to like see it in action and see how it goes. So you can find those in here, of course, and you can find description, but I also recommend checking out this, which is the example I gave you a week ago or so. And if you see how they do it in the generic chatbot trial thing that they made, it really helps to, in my style, it helps to see it in action rather than seeing a description of the rule. But either way is fine. And I put both in the Google Classroom post for today. So anyway, you go through these, do the random, do this, and they are basically getting you to try a lot of the basic stuff. This is not every possibility. Rivescript has a good chunk of features that you can use. And actually, you can skip this last one. The last one says, oh, choose 2 others if you want. And most of you will mess around and try stuff. But for the actual grade of this particular assignment, I'm just going to look to see if you did these basic ones. So you don't have to pick 2 others for this. Although you probably will, because other people have been asking. As they start, they're like, oh, how do I make it do this? How do I make it do this? And then I might know, or more likely I'll look it up in here and then look up how the examples go, and then we'll help people. Another one I wanted to point out real quick is the star asterisk system. So earlier we saw this one says if it doesn't fit any of these, then the star is just a catch-all. For anything else it would say I don't understand. But you can use a star in a specific way, which is to put it in the input and then mention this thing. If you say star1 in what are those called, angle brackets, then you can take input from the user and put it in the answer. So if I say, for example, my favorite food is potato, then the bot will go, oh, I also like, and then they'll take the thing that you put and use it in the answer. Now, you can do more, like you can do the star2 thing. If you say, then they can you know, rice and egg, I don't know, and then they'll say, oh, this thing and this other thing, because they get the star1 and star2. And if you look at the examples in here, it's like pretty useful in taking stuff from the user and creating a oh, right here, like blank told me to say blank. Why would I tell you to say blank? If you arrange it nicely, you can get the bot to sound like it knows what it's talking about, even though, of course, the bot doesn't know what it's talking about, because you could say stuff like, you know, let's simplify it here for a second. You could say, my favorite food is blah, blah, and it'll say, I also like blah, blah, without any check to be like, oh, is that really a food? Is that really a word? We could add detail later where the bot would, you know, quote unquote, think about it for a second, but it doesn't. Currently, it just takes the input and rearranges it a little bit. So that is the assignment for now. You don't have to do the same topic for this thing as you do for the big assignment. So if you want to do something kind of silly for this, and then when we get to the big group project, you do something a little more, you know, legitimate, that's fine. It could just be like, you know, whatever you did for your flow chart. It could be whatever you want. So just get some basic triggers. Like you could say, my name is whatever, and then it would say, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. And then you'll go from there. So there you go. I'm going to end this video before it gets too long, and we have some time. So this is a bigger thing. If you go through each of these steps, it might take a little bit, especially if, you know, it doesn't quite work and you're like, what the heck's going on? You have to look at the code and look at an example and try it. That happens, and that's fine. I got lucky in this video and I didn't have any big errors, unless there's something I didn't notice. But you guys can take your time. This is marked as due at the end of next week. So I'll give you some time. You can also obviously do the previous steps if you haven't, and I should grade the previous steps, of course. And then you want to kind of get familiar with this because you're going to be using it in this project and the next. Thanks.